Hi, and welcome back to Broken and Brilliant. I'm Carrie O'Toole with Carrie O'Toole Ministries, and I'm welcomed today via Skype by my two very special guests, Craig and Ashley Peterson. Welcome, you two.
Hi.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, I'm so excited to be able to talk with you today. Craig, you and I have been Facebook friends for a while through some parenting groups that we're on in Facebook. And I reached out to you to talk about whether you might be interested in sharing some of your story. And you gladly obliged, and I'm so thankful. And one of the you asked if we could bring on one of your kids, and Ashley has agreed to come on and share her story. And I'm just gonna, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much, Ashley. You are a very brave, courageous young woman, and I'm so excited to hear your story today. Um, Craig, I'd like you to be able to set this up for us, and then we'll just go from there.
That's what we'll do. Um, Before Ashley was adopted and joined my family, that she was a victim of molestation while she was in foster care um, over a 2 to 3 year period. We don't know exactly how much because Ashley was pretty young, but we do estimate that her perpetrator um, did inappropriate things with her at least 200 times. And he is currently serving a 40-year prison sentence. But we're not here to talk about him. We're here to talk about Ashley as a survivor and what we can learn from her experience over the past 15 years that she has been my daughter.
Hmm.
And to make that easier for Ashley, we came up with a series of questions to keep her on track, and I'm going to be kind of that external brain for her to keep the conversation going.
That sounds great. I'm just going to let you two take it.
Great. Ashley, why don't you start out talking about how your child's sexual abuse fits into this definition of PTSD? We often hear about military veterans, we hear about um, women who've been raped as adults, but then we've got the issue with children. What can you tell us about this?
Well, like you stated, um, there's different levels to PTSD disorder. There are veterans who have levels of PTSD that are, to my belief, tremendously smaller than someone that has PTSD since a child. Um, Also, I think that there's a difference between a child who had PTSD disorder and a woman who, you know, got raped as an adult versus a child that was molested at an age where they can't process the trauma. There are different levels to PTSD disorder. I would say there might be so many levels we don't even know because they just affect everybody so differently.
And the reason we chose to start with that is that um, a lot of people are under the assumption that the victims just somehow get over it. And
Right,
and
and
Ashley,
that is just not the case. I can't say for sure, but I definitely know for myself that it happening one time versus maybe 5 times versus 50 times to 100 times to 200, maybe every day of a child's life until they're an adult will affect the child differently depending on how many times it happened. Because the symptoms from PTSD will be a lot different.
okay. Um, so when you came, you were to my family. You were 10 years old, and we had a good transition in elementary school. And
Mhm.
why do you think that worked?
Um, if I could just go back to the first question
Sure.
that that we had. Um, PTSD disorder is set off by triggers. which could be a smell, a sound, a noise. It could be anywhere from physical to emotional to anywhere you want to go with it, depending on how it touches that person. Going back to, an Army veteran, their triggers are significantly different than mine would be as a molestation survivor. Um, Theirs might be as far as they might actually have to be in a physical altercation with someone for a trigger to happen, or maybe just a loud thud, something just alarming them. But for someone like me, my triggers are, I have so many triggers that it's borderline ridiculous. From a tone in a person's voice to the way they may look at me or maybe not look at me, from just environmental triggers. Just the list goes on. And so, going to the into the next question that I was asked, I think that my transition went so well here at first because, for one, there weren't as many children here at first, and so I feel like my needs were more um, prominent, if that makes sense. And he took more care and patience with them at that time before there were so many children here, so that it kind of made me feel a sense of home and security when I first got here.
And we were lucky that you had a teacher in fifth grade, Miss Widmeyer, um, who really wanted to understand.
Hmm.
And how did she always make you feel in the classroom, Ashley?
Well, I had numerous altercations, from immediately when I got to my father's home, um, especially in school. Many triggers there all around. And Miss Widmeyer, which was my teacher, she didn't make me feel like I was a bad seed, if you know that makes sense. She was very empathetic, sympathetic, and aware of situations that were going on in the classroom. She was able to, in many cases, stop situations from happening before they happened because she was so aware. um, she was pretty great. That was one of my best years. I got most improved student in the whole school that year. And safe to say, things went a little bit downhill after I left Miss Widmeyer's class.
Okay, so let's talk about that transition to middle school, where all of a sudden you went from being in the safe haven of Miss Widmeyer's classroom to having 7 teachers a day with a lot more kids to navigate. How did it make you feel?
I don't know if I can explain how I felt about that. I just know that when I left middle school, elementary school, it was because the year before I had changed schools about 4 times. You know what I mean? It was a lot of, I had changed families 3 times in one school year. So when I got to sixth grade, it was kind of like another transition. It was like, and so I guess I kind of went back to my comfort zone behaviors, if you will, to get me through another transition, which the choices that I made to get me through those were not the best ones. None of them were. So, if I have to choose an emotion, I would say, um, if there's a word for just not being there, just emotionally unaware, very unattached to everything. That's where I was. And I stayed there up and through high school.
Did some teachers make a difference? I know
I
what.
had two teachers that I remember, and they were in middle school years. One was Mrs. Jones. She was my sixth grade math teacher, which I always struggled with math. Um, Before I got to my father's home, the home that I was molested in, my perpetrator actually was the one who helped me with all of my schoolwork and was the reason why I made AB honor roll for so long. You know what I mean? Um, And so when I got to middle school, math was really hard for me, and Mrs. Jones realized that a lot of times she let me redo an assignment, she let me retake a test. She would take me to her house and study with me personally. At one point through the year, I'm not sure, I did some home study stuff. I might have gotten into a little bit of trouble and might have not have been allowed on the school premises. And she volunteered to teach me math. Um, and we didn't just do that. I mean, she was like an aunt to me. She was also African American. I also had another teacher. Her name was Mrs. Walters. I had her in the seventh grade. She was another math teacher. Um, Also African American. She was pretty big, a big woman. So everybody was terrified of her. So I was not cutting up in that class. So, and it got to the point where I got in trouble so much in the hallways and in the cafeterias at school. Just going back to that disconnection that I had, you know, um, I wasn't allowed in the cafeteria. She volunteered to let me sit in her classroom, and while I was in her classroom, we would talk. She would help me through some of the class assignments that I might not have turned in, you know.
Wow.
um, should I go into that incident that happened when
Sure.
oh, okay. And so Mrs. Walters, one day, she had something that she had to do around lunchtime, and I couldn't go to her class for lunch. So she said, Ashley, could you walk down to the office and eat lunch in there? I said, okay. So I'm walking down the hall, and I passed the cafeteria, and there are a couple of girls in my grade class that I knew. And so I just stopped to chat, but they were in trouble. They had got kicked out of the cafeteria, and of course I didn't know that. I was just, talking. A teacher came out. His name was Mr. Woody. This is one of the teachers that I had a major disconnection with. Um, he, long story short, did not believe what I said, that I was on my way to the office, tried to place blame on me along with the other girls, and as I tried to walk away, kind of grabbed me by my arm, which was a huge trigger for me, being that he was white and a man. Um, so I got physical with him, and he did try to press charges on me. So that's just an example of a good teacher and then, a kind of douchebag teacher.
Well, and also how the triggers can so impact you and come out of the blue, and so white teacher, male teacher, grabbing arm, all of those things put together. Whereas in a normal situation, if you were not struggling with the PTSD, that may not
That
have
wouldn't have
been,
happened.
yes, that wouldn't have been
Right.
an issue.
Right.
It wouldn't have happened.
And I think when you say it just came out of nowhere, she was just on her way to the office like she was instructed to do, and the surprise found her,
Right.
and and everything fell apart in about probably 30 seconds, and
Right.
and and then it was about 3 months later that the assistant principal finally was able to admit. She said that was handled very poorly. A male teacher, under no circumstance, should ever touch a female student.
But that's my prime example of the different levels of PTSD disorder.
Mm-hmm.
A veteran, who's coming home from war, is not going to be triggered as easily. You know what I mean? In day to day, hand to hand contact with people, situations, if you will. You know what I mean? It would have to be some serious altercations going on, or maybe some yelling going on, or it's just different.
Well,
And
definitely
especially me
when it's
being a
happened.
child,
Yes.
I had no idea what PTSD even was at that time. I didn't know I was being triggered. I just knew that I had emotions coming up to here and I had to do something with them.
And Ashley, I want to tell you, I was a high school teacher for a while. I taught middle school as well. And I was a band teacher. And so I spent a lot of time with the kids outside of the classroom. And no, I never had any training on PTSD, what it looked like, how a kid's behavior might be something other than what I thought it was. And I was thinking back as you were speaking about, I wonder if I ever triggered anything, because there were times that I touched male students, never inappropriately, but I wonder if I ever triggered anything with anybody without knowing. I'm really hoping that maybe as you speak today and as people watch this, we can just become more sensitive to know what people might be going through.
Right. My dad and I had a brief conversation last week, and we, talked about um, what's the way I want to say it? What do you want to start it?
Where are you going? I'm not sure where you're going.
Okay, never mind. Never mind. Let's
That's
continue.
okay. That's all right.
And if you come back to it, we can come back to
I
it.
mean, because I don't know if it's relevant right now,
Okay.
so I'll wait.
That's all right.
And after Ashley finished middle school, we knew that she needed to be in a small environment for high school. Our home high school had over 3,000 students, and that was just a recipe for daily disaster triggers left and right. So we found a new charter school, and we went there mainly because we knew it was small. We had some concerns right off the bat, but we said, at least it's small. It started with only 150 students.
It was an African American school, sort of. I mean, they didn't label it as that, but that's what it was.
Right. And and Ashley's ninth grade year went pretty well, and then the school really emphasized statewide testing because we wanted all of our students to pass these high stakes tests. And when Ashley was a sophomore, she passed the English test, but she didn't pass the algebra test. And I happened to be at the school the day she got the results, and that had to be one of the biggest triggers I had ever seen. And do you want to talk about how you felt that day when you got your test scores?
I mean, I just felt like I tried and it wasn't really worth the effort to try. I mean, that's all. Really, it was a trigger for me because I failed at something that I actually tried to do without Butch, I guess.
And the school year from that day went downhill rapidly. Because I think it's Ashley said, I did my best, I tried my hardest, and you're putting all this value on one test.
Right.
And you didn't feel very good about yourself.
Right. I recall a lot more physical situations, just physical triggers, more so than educational.
Can you talk about that just a little bit? What was that like for you?
That's what I was going to talk about a minute ago. I had quite a bit of sexual situations, inappropriate conduct at school all through my grades at school. And all of due to triggers that I had that I did not realize, and so if you want to start there, we can start there.
Yeah, and you don't have to get super specific. You can just maybe if you can talk about how these triggers impacted you and then that it caused you to want to act in these certain ways.
Well, okay, I'll start off with saying I had the vibe. Um, Not necessarily a bad girl vibe, not a vibe that I knew I was giving off. Kind of in comparison to maybe like a pheromone
Hmm.
vibe. Like you're giving off, oozing off unattended unappropriateness. Does that make?
Right.
I'm probably saying that
No, you're saying it great.
that I didn't even realize that I was giving off until months ago when I ran into old classmates who were like, I was just so sexually attracted to you, and I don't know why. I didn't realize that me being a molestation victim,
Hmm.
made that it would make me vulnerable or gullible or susceptible to doing inappropriate things all the time. Like
Right.
I had no boundaries, but I did have boundaries. It was just I was such a contradiction. It was weird. A person couldn't touch me, going back to that teacher and that incident that I had in the hallway. But then I would have these inappropriate situations with fellow male classmates. I had situations from in the woods, at school, um, not being in class, being at a boy's house during school hours, bathroom incidents from middle school, and then going back to Charles A. Tinley, wrapping it up to bring it back to where we were. I had multiple incidents at Charles A. Tinley being sexually inappropriate, which I think that after I did so well at ninth grade, it just kind of went downhill. I mean, I
Hmm.
just kind of got lost in that world, I guess.
Yeah. By the way, you are explaining this extremely well.
I
You're,
am? Oh,
yes,
good, because I think
you're
I
very,
sound
very,
dumb.
no, you're very, very clear. And you really, I can tell you have done a lot of work, first of all. Let me just say, it's very, very obvious. The language that you're using and the way that you are explaining how you felt and what you were doing is very complex. And you're speaking at a very high emotional intelligence level. You really are. It's really amazing to be able to
Thank
hear
you.
such a young woman be able to talk about what was going on in your life back then and how you can understand it at such a high level right now. It's very amazing.
It's all due to my dad. It really is. Because
Can you talk about that a little bit? We're almost out of time here, so I want to give
okay,
you
I'll
a
I'll
chance
make it
to.
quick. Um, from day one, he's believed in me. Um, he I was in ice skating lessons. I always wanted to ice skate ever since I was at Butch and Sandy's home. I was skating around in my socks. He immediately put me in ice skating classes. He put me in dance classes. I wanted to sing. He gave me singing lessons, and this is all through my ups and downs during school. Anything that I showed any interest in, he did. Anything from going into his wallet to being there applauding me while I'm failing. Trying, um, every time we think I'm there and I fall back down, he doesn't say, well, I'm tired of this, or, it's just never going to end. He's always said, from day one, I did my research and I knew that we would be on for a long road. And he said that to me, but he's actually walked that long walk with me. And he's still here, not just with me, but my brothers also, because they have a completely different story that's hard too.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
he's done it by himself. When I first got to him, I had no trust issues at all. I still have very few trust issues. I have many trust issues. I don't trust many, but I trust him.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I just think that's important when a parent is trying to help a child that could be almost a lost cause, because a person can only come out of something if they realize what they're going through. You can't drill it in their head. They have to succumb to their own awareness, and the fact that he's waited on me to get there, and now that I'm there, he's helping me figure out where I fit in life, is helping me keep forward and feeling like I can do better.
And one last thing I'd like you to share, because I think it's real important. You had a lot of therapy that didn't work, that in some cases made your behavior worse.
Right.
But then we finally got you to agree to DBT, or dialectical behavior therapy.
Yes.
And any insight about why
DBT
that was?
DBT therapy is what any child that has been molested or has any kind of attachment disorder or social disorder needs to take that therapy. They need to have it. Maybe their parents need to take that course, because it's really just about how to communicate your emotions with other people. And had I have had that, all the incidents that I had would not have happened, because I was on a whole nother understanding level than what the people that I got into the incidents with were on. And now I realize that there's an incident that I had on the bus that I could have sworn that girl, was talking crap to me. Okay, I could have sworn it, but everybody on that bus said she said nothing, and I still went back there and had a physical altercation with her. But that's the type of different levels that I was on. You know what I mean? I heard it. I know what I heard, but
it didn't happen. Somehow, your perception of what was going on had gotten kind of distorted because of all of the trauma. So the DBT sort of helped you.
Brings awareness to where you are and where you're trying to go. It's letting you know when you're communicating with somebody, you need to have an objective. You need to, be, what's the word I'm looking for? You need to be,
You think about
rational mind is what is important about DBT. Why other therapies didn't work with me is because they work so hard in trying to talk about what I went through, what happened. Let's relive that. Okay, let's not do that. Let's talk about how I go on from here,
how you can live and be successful from here on.
Yes, that is why DBT was successful for me.
That's great. Craig, is there anything else you wanted to share? Ashley, is there anything, if you could say anything to people who are listening right now, I don't know, it might be people who are survivors themselves. It might be people who are working with survivors. What would you want to say?
I would say to not feel any embarrassment, to not feel any shame via if it's just what happened to you or the actions that you took from what happened to you. There is no shame in it. It's just approaching it, being aware, and changing it. That's really all you can do. And like I said, DBT therapy is, I would go as far as saying everybody could use it. You know what I mean? Because it just makes you open your eyes to what's really going on around you, not what you think is going on around you.
Because every week for nearly 6 months, Ashley had a group DBT class. And I drove her because I knew there might be some triggers in the sessions. And we spent that time driving home. Oftentimes we would stop for lunch and we would process what she learned. And it was amazing to see her put the pieces together for the first time.
Because that's what I was missing the whole time. Like, my dad and I had, I'll finish up on this note. We had the conversation, of my molestation, how it made me feel and everything, and talking about how we tried so hard to get my teachers to understand what had happened to me. Care providers, Dawn Project people, but what we were missing and why we were never successful in doing that is because I was missing the key. It was me that needed to understand where I needed to go and what me being molested means for me in my life, not what other people think it means for me, or not where they think I should be, what it means for me and where do I then fit in. Because I think a lot of people who are molested or are going through that feel like they are on the outside, and they keep themselves always on the outside because that's where they feel more comfortable, because they're just not there yet.
Right. Right. Wow. Thank you. I just want to say thank you. You're an amazing young woman. You have gone through so much. You're very courageous. And I just want to say thank you for being willing to come on and share your story. And I'm just hoping and praying it really impacts some other people, and that those caring and teaching for children who have maybe been in this situation might learn some things and realize, maybe I need a little more training in this area because I don't want to cause any more harm.
Right. Yeah.
And
Thank you so much for, asking me to come on. It meant a lot to me. I was very excited. I Facebooked about it and everything.
awesome. Well, when we get this out, we'll tag you in it so you can Facebook about it more, and we'll get it out there to whoever needs to see it. So, Craig, thanks so much. Ashley, thank you so much. And we will see you next time here on Broken and Brilliant.